Mr. Chairman, when I was a child, I had this fantastic book called Children Just Like Me from UNICEF. It was filled with beautiful pictures and stories of children from all over the world. I somehow felt connected to them, and I simply loved it. Now that I've become a young person, I thought it would be great if there would be a book called Young People Just Like Me. Besides meeting many inspiring young people in the Netherlands, I've been privileged to meet young people in India, in Tanzania, and in China. They too have been inspired by the strength, wisdom, and energy. However, when looking further into the situation of young people around the world, I also became disheartened. I found out that, had I been born in another country, I might have had a 40% chance of being illiterate. In some countries, I would have had a 30% chance of being infected with HIV/AIDS. And yet other countries, I would have had a 0% chance of influencing politics, since I, as a young woman, wouldn't have had voting rights. It made me realize that young people's rights are being denied on a vast scale. I would like to emphasize, though, granting us our rights is not about generosity. It's simply about not denying young people their rights. First, in the field of education. Every child has the right to go to school. However, far too many young people, girls in particular, haven't had an education, but instead have had to work throughout their childhood. In the Millennium Development Goals, we stated that in 2005, as many girls as boys should be going to school. The reality is that 2/3 of the children out of school are girls. By providing equal access to education, young women will not only have an equal chance in the labour market, they will also have the confidence to stand up for themselves and protect themselves against diseases like HIV/AIDS. Through education and engagement, young people can be empowered to fulfill their potential and become the active agents in society that young people ought to be. Secondly, in the field of sexual and reproductive rights. For young people, especially for young women and girls, there is a lack of access to information about sexual and reproductive health and rights, and a lack of access to safe and reliable contraceptives, including male and female condoms. These lacks not only deprive young people of their rights, they are also a threat to achieving the Millennium Development Goals. The goals on maternal mortality, HIV/AIDS, infant mortality, and gender equality cannot be achieved without addressing sexual and reproductive health. This also includes sexual and reproductive healthcare services. Also, a young woman should have the right to decide what will happen with her own body. And thirdly, in the field of politics. In many countries, young people are denied the right to speak out and voice their opinion. They are also denied the right to vote and stand for election. In some countries, this denial only applies to women. But even in countries where women do enjoy the right to vote and stand for election, they are still greatly underrepresented in local, national, and international decision-making bodies. I cannot make this more obvious than by inviting you to look at your own government and count the women in key positions. Though young women have the same rights as young men, young women have specific needs and challenges. Indeed, young people as a whole have specific needs and challenges. This was recognized by the General Assembly when it adopted the World Programme of Action for Youth in 1995. This was recognized again by the Commission on Social Development when it agreed the supplement last February. This General Assembly has the opportunity to recognize this once again by adopting that supplement. It is a good supplement that has the potential to improve the lives of young people everywhere. However, goals and time-bound targets are still lacking to assess improvements. Luckily, this General Assembly also has the potential to adopt a resolution that includes goals and time-bound targets for the first cluster, as proposed in the Secretary General's report. Mr. Chairman, young people, especially young women and girls, are still facing poverty, insecurity, and inequality. Yet these young people are not represented here today because their countries did not bring a youth delegate. What would they have said? Some would have called upon us to ensure equal access to education. Some would have called upon you to enforce sexual and reproductive rights. Some would have called upon you to secure equal voting rights. Since they are not here, and we are, their would-haves are now our opportunities. Their would-haves are now our possibilities. I believe that their would-haves are now our responsibilities. Therefore, I call upon you, I call upon all countries to fulfill this responsibility by ensuring equal access to education, enforcing sexual and reproductive rights, and securing equal voting rights. As youth delegate of the Netherlands, I do have the opportunity to address this committee, and I would very much like to make one extra call of my own. I call upon you to adopt the supplement to the World Programme of Action for Youth, and to adopt a resolution that includes goals and timeout targets for the different clusters. Let us act together now to ensure that in 2015, both the Millennium Development Goals and the World Programme of Action for Youth goals have been reached. That gender equality is a fact, and that the situations of millions of young people all over the world has improved dramatically. By 2015, I may have children of my own. For sure, I will read them the book called Children Just Like Me. And maybe by then, someone, inspired by the strength, wisdom, and energy of young people, will have had the fantastic idea to make a book called Young People Just Like Me. By then, hopefully, with every reason to be heartened and cheerful, I would very much love to read that book. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I thank the distinguished good representative of the Netherlands for her very compassionate statement delivered so directly with lots of passion.